just a simple question. And my question is, in your mind, when did the 20th century officially start?
1900.
1900. Anyone else?
I agree. I second the motion.
Yeah.
January 1st.
Well, in my opinion, I feel that the 20th century truly began on July 16th, 1945, with the detonation of the first atom bomb. So, and this is my avatar project. So. Oh.
So you gotta press it. You gotta press the avatar project button.
Okay. So when I first started coming up with my avatar project, I thought of, okay, what are 3 things that I really, really want to talk about in my avatar project? I came up with science, the Cold War, and political ideologies. And I thought, okay, what's the best way that I could incorporate all 3 of those? And then it hit me, like, oh my god, the Manhattan Project, Cold War, Soviets, communism, arms race, it just fit perfectly. And in this picture is Melia, right here, who is my avatar, her brother Hansel, her father Jack, and her mother Natasha. I really felt that it was going to be really important to have my avatar's parents be as encouraging as possible in the development of their children, and to really encourage them just to ask questions, to really want to know why things are the way they are. And I really felt that it was important that their parents encourage their children to look at things from different points of view. So like in the media, you hear about a huge disaster, but I wanted Melia to also be able to have, like, okay, well, what is the standpoint from a Russian point of view? What is the standpoint from a German point of view? So that she would get this all-encompassing kind of perspective. I didn't want her to be doped down by the average general perspective of what was going on in the 20th century. So. This is the house that Jack Benz grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. His father was a Harvard professor of history, and his mother was just a average, house mother. They were 3rd-generation Germans, so Jack did know how to. He was fluent in German and also English. He was very interested in language and just how the world worked, and he was also interested in politics. He met Natasha in Russia. Natasha Berbatov, she is also 100% Russian, fluent in Russian. They were able to teach each other their own heritage languages. And like I said before, they were very, very encouraging parents. I was really happy to be able to find a picture of an elementary school in Berkeley as early as 1910. This is the school that I had Melia and her brother attend at Berkeley. When I first started writing my avatar chapters, it was really hard for me to commit to a gender just because I didn't want to box myself in. I didn't want to cut off any opportunities that my avatar might be able to have. I wanted her to be able to do anything I wanted them to be able to do. And my dad brought up this idea of, well, what about Los Alamos? Why don't you have her go to Los Alamos? I think that would really be able to allow you to really look in depth and research and talk from a historical point of view. And I also like the idea of having her as a research or as a scientist, kind of ahead of her time, and not letting people tell her what she could and could not do. Because at that time, a woman who was a physicist and getting her PhD was almost unheard of in the 1930s and 1920s. And I kind of fell in love with that idea. So Berkeley was heavily influenced by both California, the University of California, Berkeley, also known as Cal, and the devastating fire that swept through Berkeley Hills and most of Berkeley in 1923 on September 17th. It was kind of a paradox in the way that it was incredibly devastating, wiping out 614 buildings, but it also allowed tons and tons of money to be pumped into Berkeley's economy for reconstruction. So it kind of worked as this double fold. So people didn't have homes, but there was so much attention put on Berkeley because, oh my God, we have to help these people. We have to, put them back on their feet. And that kind of gave Berkeley a little bit more of a footholding when it came to the Depression. And the other, a very familiar picture that everyone has seen more than 5 times, I'm willing to bet. Some of you might not know this, but in the 1920s, the population of Cal went from 7,000 to 11,000 people. I mean, that is like an incredible population increase. And one of the reasons why was because of their football team, and they had this legacy of football teams coached by Andy Smith, and from 1920 to 1925, they were deemed the wonder teams, outscoring point totals, outscoring their opponents 1,649 to 139 points. So, like, that's just like mind-boggling to me that that so many teams back to back would just be able to demolish their competition, and that lended a lot of support from the community because they had a team who could kick anyone's ass. I mean, can you imagine that feeling of like, yeah, this is everyone, like, we're gonna trudge right through, boo Stanford, and I mean, this was what paid for the building of the stadium. I mean, the fact that all these alumni were so proud of their school, they were able to say, I'm willing to dole out, XYZ many dollars to be able to see kids have that same exact experience that they had had. So, Robert J. Oppenheimer. Some of you know him as the maestro of the Manhattan Project. He was brought on to the Cal campus as head of the physics department. At that time, it was very, very, I guess, mediocre, the physics department at Cal, and you're all probably thinking, well, Cal was one of the most renowned physics departments in all the world in the 1940s because they were the ones who developed the uranium-235 and the plutonium. I mean, how did that make that switch? And it's all because of him, because this man was so, his energy, his ability to just really think in depth and really want to know why things work, into his ability to teach kids about his passion of physics was just, I really wanted to have that play out in my avatar and have my avatar be a student of his. So I have her going to Cal Berkeley at the time that he's teaching, so 1929, and she ends up being one of his pupils that he takes to Los Alamos to work on calculations for the actual building of the bomb. And that takes us to Los Alamos National Laboratory. The reason why they picked the site was because Oppenheimer had spent a lot of time in New Mexico. He actually owned a ranch, which he called the hot dog, literally. I don't know the Spanish translation, but he said that there's no way Soviets, the Germans, who they were competing with at the time, would be able to guess that this was the site. I mean, just because it was desert. Nothing was there. I mean, so many people were so much focused on Washington, California, New York, all the places, the metropolitan places that were prospering, and why would you ever, even blink an eye at Los Alamos? So, the person who I met, Mark's avatar, Frankie McGee, he worked as an engineer on the Manhattan Project, and Melia and Frankie's relationship was basically, they developed a friendship of basically being able to, as a sounding board, to bounce off theories of, because there was a huge difference between scientific success and when this bomb would actually be used on, and the question was who, why, and another conversation that came up many times was, have the Germans beaten us? Have the Germans infiltrated, the facility? What about the Soviets? Just kind of this excitement that they knew they were about to make history, but then also kind of the fear of the unknown that they were slowly coming upon. This is right after the detonation, 0.09 seconds, and I mean, if you look at the scale, you just can't even imagine. Oh, yeah, thank you. Here's the mushroom cloud forming. So, as you can see, 0.112 seconds. guess Oppenheimer and General Groves afterwards. I wanted my avatar to have a happy ending, so I had her move to Vermont, and this is a picture of Shelburne Farms where she is scouting out a possible field trip site because I have her working as a school teacher of math and science at Lincoln Elementary School, and Lincoln, Vermont is where my grandparents now live. I have her meeting her husband, Mark, there. The takeaways that I really wanted to have of this avatar project was just basically the reason why I think 1945, that decade, was so important to the 20th century was because it was the first time that man had the ability to obliterate the world. It was the first time they had the ability to just decimate a population in a matter of seconds. And I mean, even today, that's constantly on our minds with the nuclear reactors in Japan, the meltdowns, nuclear decay, the radiation, and then also, the possibility of the Middle East countries maybe having undocumented nuclear means of power. So, yeah. Yeah, Amina.
It was a really good presentation. I was just
Thank you.
something about like when you're talking about the stadium and you're saying like this is probably Andy Smith and now like
Andy Smith. Yeah, he was
it's a man.
he was the coach. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was named after all of the Cal graduates who died in World War I. So that's why it's called California Memorial Stadium. So, any other questions? Did I confuse anyone at any point?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about how you wanted her to be a woman in a time when there weren't very many female nuclear physicists.
Mhm.
Do you address that anywhere in your story? Do people say, well, you can't do this, you should go home and...
I tried to, I knew that was going to possibly come up. And the way I tried to kind of head that off was by having her parents be so encouraging. And so regardless of what anyone else would tell her, she would always have that kind of stronghold at home with her parents being right there in Berkeley and always being saying, you can do this, like, we believe in you, don't let these people tell you what you can and cannot do. And just stories of people, her mother would tell her a whole bunch of different stories about, how the Russians overthrew the Tsars, and just because enough was enough and they wanted to do what they felt was right, and she grew up with those types of stories.
So her parents were kind of unusual.
Yeah, her parents were very unusual, and I really liked that idea, having the oddball family, the oddball kid, just to make it that much more standout. So, any other questions?